Let's talk about what is happening in Kursk right now. You have, we understand, accepted an invitation from the Russian authorities. When are you planning to visit the site?
Well, good morning. First, yes, indeed, as you were saying in the introduction, we have a very concerning situation there on top of what we have been working on and what we have been seeing in Zaporizhzhia. Now we have a second nuclear power plant, which is, if not on the front line, like Zaporizhzhia, very close to another point of contact or front line in the region of Kursk, as you rightly said. Since this advance of Ukrainian troops started and in the proximity of a nuclear power plant, the Russian authorities have been giving us some information, and my reaction to that was, as always, that the only way in which the IAEA can validate things, confirm things, is when we have an opportunity to independently assess what is happening. This is valid for Zaporizhzhia, this is valid for nuclear proliferation in Iran, or whatever the IAEA is. Hence, this dialogue led to an invitation to come, and we are working on the details. As you can imagine, visiting a combat zone is not like, a normal business trip. So we are working on a number of logistical and security details that are necessary in order to make this possible within the next few days.
What do you expect to accomplish on this trip? What do you expect to find on this trip? Can you give me a sense of what this plant looks like, how it's laid out, how protected it is? I understand there isn't a concrete dome over the reactor, etc.
This is a very peculiar facility. You have there 6 nuclear reactors. You have 2 which are being decommissioned, so they are not working and they are being dismantled, if I can put it like that. There are 2 which are operating. First, important key information. This is not like Zaporizhzhia, where you have the plant basically in what we call cold shutdown. So these are hot nuclear reactors, which means that in case something, God forbid, happened, there would be a very serious situation. And then we have two other plants which are being constructed. So you have the whole, I would say, spectrum of possibilities regarding a nuclear power plant. And the other important element that I want to signal is that the operating units are of a type called RBMK in the Russian terminology, which are similar to the nuclear power plants that you may remember from Chernobyl, which means that they do not have a protecting dome around them, so just the normal roof, which means that the reactor's core is pretty exposed. And when you add up this fact to the issue that you have advancing troops, objectively speaking, within artillery range, then this, of course, is a source of enormous concern to me and for the agency. So when you ask me what I want to accomplish, first of all, is to check things on the ground, to see what the situation is. We will be having, of course, conversations with not only the nuclear experts. I suppose there will be security or military people who will be able to give me their own assessment. We have to make our own assessment of the emergency preparedness and response preparations that this facility has. So it's an enormous task ahead of us, not an easy one, but this is exactly what we need to do, go where problem is.
Well, Rafael, let's take that piece by piece and start with the safety concerns outside of the military risk itself. What does that emergency preparedness you just referred to actually look like? If we're talking about this kind of exposure, what kind of safety measures might you need to be putting into place?
Well, we need to, of course, this is an evolving situation, right? So we do not have, and this is an active combat zone. Let me remind the audience again about this. So it's a situation that is changing by the hour. And this, of course, means what I mean by this is the distance or the capabilities that are being deployed there. which means that we need to know what is the situation, for example, regarding the external power supply. You know, the external power supply is essential to ensure the cooling function of I repeat, operating nuclear power plant, which requires constant influx of electricity in order to ensure the cooling function, lest you have a meltdown of the reactors. We need to understand in the current circumstances how is the supply chain working. You know, a nuclear power plant, like any other big industrial site, is in constant need of equipment, things that come and go. And as you have seen, and I'm just simply mentioning, open source information that is available, there are some bridges that have been either blown up or destroyed. So I need to understand exactly well how isolated or otherwise this nuclear power plant is at the moment. So the only way to do that is to go there, to have a conversation with the local government and with the Russian federal government.
So, Rafael, that's the safety concerns, of course, that you had mentioned. Let's kind of dive into that combat zone perspective that you were just talking about. There's been criticism that even though the IAEA, has been monitoring both Zaporizhzhia and Kursk for the past 2 years now, you haven't come out more clearly about who you think is behind the attacks on both nuclear plants, despite both Russia and Ukraine very clearly accusing the other sides. Any comment on that?
Well, yes, we hear that. I think what is important in this case is to understand what the role of the IAEA is and how the IAEA operates. The IAEA is not a commentator, is not a political actor, is not a country, is not a member of any alliance or otherwise. It's an international organization charged with the nuclear non-proliferation, nuclear safety, nuclear security, nuclear energy, nuclear applications, and so on and so forth. So whenever we have a situation, whichever this may be, this is why I make the analogy of, this situation, or it could be a nuclear non-proliferation case in the Middle East. The only way we can pronounce ourselves in a definitive and clear way is when we have elements in our hands. We are also a body of inspectors that undisputably indicate the origin of an event. If I don't have these elements, I can describe the issue. I can even go as far as saying how we think this occurred, but we cannot get into speculations of why, or the motivations, or the reasons, and so on and so forth. For this, you have the UN Security Council, you have many other things. This being said, if we had undisputable, irrefutable evidence pointing to a source for an event, we would say it. What I have been saying, I've said it in front of the United Nations Security Council, is that whoever is behind this must stop. An operating nuclear power plant cannot be, should never be a military target. So what we can do for the international community is being there, being a deterrent, and importantly, giving objective information. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of one or the other narrative.
So, Rafael, just to be clear, are you saying you don't know where the attacks are coming from on both Zaporizhzhia and on Kursk?
Well, first of all, we have to make a difference, an important difference here. In the case of Zaporizhzhia, there have been a number of episodes, attacks, and there have been mutual accusations. The Russians accusing the Ukrainians accusing the Russians. We have been diving as deep as possible into the issues, the last of which was, as you may remember, 10 days ago, more or less, when the cooling tower of the Zaporizhzhia one of the cooling towers of the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant was on fire. When that happened, we got access to the place just a few hours after the the fire had been put down, and we were able to issue a number of technical updates, which give a pretty good amount, I would say, of information about this. So this is number one. I have also explained that in the case of drones, given the trajectory of drones, given the erratic trajectory of drones, unless one can find enough evidence, it would be even irresponsible to say it's A or B. So it's not that we are unaware. We have a number of elements, but again, before an international inspector says something definitive, one has to be absolutely 100% sure. And in the case of Kursk, then the situation is even less clear.
Okay, on the situation in Kursk, have you received any assurances from Kyiv, from the Ukrainian side, that they will not be targeting the site there?
We are working on that.
Okay. What questions? So you have asked the questions, and they have not said.
We are
they
asking,
have not given you a definitive answer.
As you can imagine, Guy, we're asking all sorts of questions. So I have to go, and this is a very delicate issue.
Okay, but the specific question. Sorry, Director General. The specific question is to the Ukrainian authorities, given the extreme situation and the lack of protection that the site in Kursk has. Are you getting any assurances from the Ukrainian authorities, who have obviously a lot of invested interest here, that they will not target this site?
Yeah. After my visit to Kursk and to Russia, the following week I will be in Kyiv. I will be hopefully talking to President Zelensky.